these are the topics which we'll be discussing today. The angina, heart attack, CPR, sudden cardiac arrest, and asthma. So these are the places where I have worked previously. So before going to the details of angina and heart attack, I'll just try to tell you what the heart is. Basically, the heart is a pumping organ. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The heart is a pumping organ because we are living beings. So our body needs every part of our body, every tissue of our body, starting from the head to toe, needs blood supply. The blood is the carrier. Blood carries the oxygen you breathe in. Blood carries the hormones which are secreted in your body. Blood carries whatever medicines you are taking. So blood is the carrier. So heart is the pumping organ to pump out blood to different parts and tissues and cells, each and every part of the body. That is the function of the heart. So whenever there is a problem in the heart, let it be a valvular problem, let it be a muscular problem, or let it be a problem in the artery of the heart. So according to NYHA classification, that is New York Heart Association classification, which have gradations from 1 to 4 and up to 5 also. So these are the symptoms one will present with. That is chest pain, breathlessness, palpitation, and fatigue. Let me tell you, heart is a pumping organ. It's a muscular structure. Like any other muscles of our body, heart is also a muscular structure. It has 4 chambers which received used blood from all parts of the body, send it to the lungs to get it oxygenated when we take breath, then returning it to the heart, and the heart pumps it towards to each and every part of the body, to the head, to the brain, to the kidneys, to every other part. So what is angina? Angina is a chest pain because of a problem in your heart, because of some ailment in your heart. So this is the definition of angina. Angina, the scientific name of angina is angina pectoris, is a medical term for chest pain or discomfort due to coronary artery disease. It occurs when the heart muscles don't get much blood supply as it requires. This usually happens because one or more heart arteries are narrowed and blocked. What does that mean? That means angina or angina pectoris is pain in the heart which are felt by us like a pain in the chest wall, right? Heart is a muscular structure. The way every part of our body needs blood to survive, heart being a living structure itself, though the function of the heart is to pump blood to other parts, it also requires blood for its survival. Its muscles, which acts for pumping the blood, also require blood for their survival. So the arteries or the carrier or the vessels which carries blood to the muscles of the heart are known as coronary arteries. If there will be blockages in those arteries because of any reason, you must have heard about cholesterol. You must have heard about blockages in the heart because the patient is diabetic, the patient had a previous family history. So if the arteries of the heart which carries blood to supply the heart muscles are blocked because of any reasons, maybe partially blocked or maybe completely blocked, whenever there is less blood supply to a particular part, there will be pain. This pain is known as ischemic pain. Ischemic pain or ischemia. You must have heard somebody is a diabetic and one of his feet or a toe or a finger is getting destroyed. It becomes black. It becomes gangrenous. Then he has to, give it up. He has to get it amputated. So that is because of less blood supply. The muscle in that part, the tissue in that part dies. Before the part is completely destroyed, the part will experience pain. So because of the blockages in the heart arteries, since the muscles of the heart are getting less blood, there will be pain in the heart. So that pain, which is manifested in the form of pain in the chest, is known as angina or angina pectoris. It could be a frank pain. It could be a shooting kind of a pain. It could be a severe kind of a pain. It could be merely a discomfort. There is some discomfort in the chest. The patient is not able to tell whether it is a pain or there is some discomfort. The patient is not very comfortable about his chest. There could be a pressure, mere pressure. There is something inside the chest cavity which is giving you pressure. There could be a squeezing kind of a thing. Or you may feel pain in your shoulders, especially the left shoulder, or the arms, especially the left arm, or the neck, or the jaw, or the back. Or you may feel like indigestion. Many times you must have felt the very sensation of indigestion, जो बदहजमी बोलते हैं. So this angina pain has many variants. It could be a pain, or it could be a discomfort, pressure, squeezing, pain in shoulder, neck, jaw, back, anything of that sort. So this is just to show the structure of the heart. You can very well see these red structures which I have marked. These are known as coronary arteries. Coronary means heart. So blood from the main arteries of the heart comes through these arteries which are known as coronary arteries to supply the muscles of the heart. So blockages in these arteries can give rise to this angina. Then these are different types. See, the heart is a muscular structure. It's kind of a spherical or globular structure. It has a front portion, it has a back portion, it has a inferior portion, it has a superior portion. So these are different coronary arteries which supply blood to different parts of the heart. Here is a schematic diagram showing this coronary artery supply the front of the heart, this supply the back of the heart, and the right side of the heart. This supplies the front and the left side of the heart. These arteries supply the back of the heart. So these are different arteries. So then what triggers angina? Remember, angina is a pain because of blockages in the arteries of the heart, which is an age-related process. It could be a hereditary thing. It could be because of some bad habits which we incur. So how they're triggered? I mean, it's not that I am sitting in my chair and one fine day I found that I'm having chest pain. No, it's not like that. Because the blockages which are critical blockages, like maybe 100% or 95% or 90% or 70% for that matter, they haven't become that severe in a single day. So it has taken a very long time, many years, to be that critical, right? So it's not that the patient will all of a sudden have pain while sitting or while lying down. So while exercising, when we exercise, our body needs more blood. So when the body needs more blood, the heart pumps vigorously. So since the heart is working more when we are exercising, so the heart muscles will also need more blood. So the heart muscles need more blood, but we have blockages in the arteries. So the amount of blood the heart should get, or the heart muscles should get, that muscles are not getting. So will have pain. So any form of exercise like walking the stairs, running, walking up hills, eating, taking a bath, these are exercises, or emotional stress, or exposed to cold weather. Because when we're exposed to cold weather, our arteries of the heart, they get shrinked. In hot weather, they get dilated. So if somebody has already a blockage artery, and in cold weather, the arteries are getting shrinked because of the cold, so the chance of angina or chest pain. Okay, so these are the triggering factors like exercise, eating, emotional stress. These are known as 4 E's, right? So what are, see, there is, nobody can tell this is the cause of angina. These are causes of, blockages in the artery. No, there's no cause as such. We haven't found out any cause, but yes, there are risk factors. जैसे आपने सुना होगा, you must have heard about blood pressure, diabetes, family history. All those are risk factors. So it has been seen that a group of patients who don't have any risk factors, and a group of patients who have these risk factors, which we'll be discussing now. So the number of patients who are having angina, or the number of patients having blockages in their heart arteries are more. So these are considered to be high risk factors. So these are, there are modifiable high risk factors, and they're non-modifiable high risk factors. What do we mean by modifiable? Modifiable means those factors which we can take care of to decrease the incidence of angina, like tobacco use in any form, cigarette smoking, pan chewing, nicotine chewing, any form, tobacco in any form causes blockages in the heart arteries. High blood pressure, high blood cholesterol, saturated fats, processed fat, food, baked foods, fried foods. So these are, factors. These are diets. If we eat, there will be more chance of blockages in the heart arteries. Lack of exercise. We are leading a sedentary lifestyle in today's era, and obesity, because our dietary habit is such that we become obese. Indians, especially Asians, and amongst the Indians, we, when we reach the middle age, we have a tendency of centripetal obesity. तोंद निकल आता है, पेट निकल आता है. This, our tummy, that it becomes huge. So these are high risk factors for coronary artery disease or blockages of heart arteries. Like stress. Stress is also, in stress, there are different hormones which are released. So these are causes of blockages in the heart arteries, and hence angina. So these are modifiable causes, because we can check these things. We can avoid taking tobaccos. We can check our cholesterol by our dietary habits and by taking medicines. We can indulge ourselves in exercise. We can take care of our obesity. When we know that we are having stress, we have to find out ways of, releasing the stress. So these are modifiable factors. What are the non-modifiable factors? Somebody has a family history. To have a blocked heart artery or coronary artery is there in my genes. I can change it. It's non-modifiable. Similarly, old age. It's a process of aging. Is a process. It's a natural process. We can't change it. Diabetes, high blood pressure, these are unmodifiable. But yes, diabetes and high blood pressure I can control. We can control that. So these are kind of semi-modifiable also, right? So these are the high risk factors which give rise to blockages in the heart arteries, and hence these things give rise to angina. So then what to do? Suppose somebody is having an angina. See, the angina is such a thing. If you go to suppose you are having angina, it's very difficult to distinguish between angina, and I told indigestion, or a muscular pain in the chest, or acidity, any other thing. So it's very difficult. So there's a saying, if you have pain right from your chin, from your jaw till your navel, your belly button, right? So any pain right from your chin, anywhere up till the navel, in an age group of 35 years, 35 years or more, it should be considered as angina unless otherwise proved. So we should give it a benefit of doubt that it could be angina. It could happen that suppose maybe 75% of the patients are not having angina, right? But if it is angina, then we are in a soup. Okay, so any patients more than 35 years of age having pain right from the chin till the navel, it should be considered as anginal pain unless otherwise proved, right? So what should you do if you are having an angina or there is doubt? You should stop working, you should stop exercising, whatever you are doing, walking, climbing upstairs, exercising, you should stop that. You should relax, because stress is also a cause. You should rest, take rest, and maybe you should lie down, right? And you must have, you heard about aspirin. Dispirin goli hum khate hai na when we have headache. These are nothing but blood thinners. So if we have blockages in the heart, so if our blood is thick, then there is a chance of, sluggish flow, less flow, and there is a chance of blood clot formation, thereby giving rise to a heart attack. So we should take blood thinners. There are tablets which causes dilatation or opening of the arteries. आपने सुना होगा a patient, कई बार हम बोलते हैं heart patient को कि if you have Sorbital tablet at your home, take a tablet and put it underneath your tongue. From there it will get absorbed. These are vessel or arterial dilators. It opens up the arteries. Then of course you should consult a doctor. The good thing about it is, once you have a pain in the chest and maybe it is angina, you are taking rest. Since your body is now doing less work, so the demand of the body is less, so the heart works less. So the demand of the heart is also less. So angina will be relieved. So it's kind of a test that once you're taking rest, angina will be relieved. Let me tell you one thing, angina is a good thing, angina is a bad thing. How come angina is a bad thing? Because angina shows that you have a problem in your heart. So it's a bad thing, your heart is diseased now. How it is a good thing? Because it's an alarm, your body or your heart is saying that I have a problem in my heart, take care of me. So in a way, if you have angina, it's a good thing that you should go to a doctor, get yourself checked and know your blockages and thereby treat yourself. So in a way, it's like the way we have, typhoid fever or malaria fever. What we have high temperature, it fever. हम लोग जब thermometer में देखते हैं ना, high temperature है, that is fever. So fever is a symptom. Similarly, angina is a symptom. Angina is not a disease. Angina is a manifestation of your blocked arteries. So if you go to doctor, he will, check your blood sugar, because diabetic patient, chances of blockages are more. He will check your lipid profile, cholesterol, because again in high cholesterol patients, the chances of angina, blocked arteries are more. Then he will do a kidney function test to know whether your kidneys are functioning. And the tests are ECG, X-ray, treadmill test, stress test. You have to run in a static cycle, and there an ECG is taken to give challenges or exercise to your heart, and then taking ECGs to see whether any changes are there or anginal pain is there. And the ultimate test is a coronary angiography, right? So how to treat angina and how to avoid angina. Angina is a symptom, it's a manifestation of blocked arteries in your heart. So you should have a heart healthy lifestyle. You should walk, you should jog, you should do yoga, meditation. You should take heart healthy diets, low calorie diets, low carbohydrate diets, low fat diets. Avoid saturated fatty acids, fats, as I told, no fried, baked, processed foods, right? And if you're having high blood pressure, control that. Diabetes, control that. Then if you have angina, you have a blocked artery in your heart. So the treatment is either medical by medicines, or it is more, if the blockages are more, maybe angioplasty or stenting. And if you have multiple blockages in multiple arteries of the heart, then it's a bypass surgery, right? Then let's come to heart attack. What is a heart attack? So heart attack, otherwise I told, any pain because of less blood supply is known as ischemia or ischemic pain. Ischemic pain of the heart is angina. Because of less blood supply, your peripheries, your hands, your legs, they are having pain also. These are also ischemic pain. So heart attack is known as myocardial infarction. That is myocardial anginal pain is because of myocardial ischemia, because of less blood supply. Heart attack is because of myocardial infarction, because of blocked blood supply, total complete cessation of blood supply, right? I have already showed you the front of the heart, the back of the heart, the inferior of the heart. There are different, arteries. If there is a blockage in the heart, like if the blockage is, 90% or 95%, it may reach to 100% also. Or there is a critical blockage of 90%. And on the top of that, a blood clot is, accumulated in the vicinity of that blocked area. So thereby completely stopping the blood supply to the distant portion of the heart muscles. So what will happen? So the heart muscles will be completely devoid of blood supply and the heart muscle will die. So that dying heart muscle, or that dead heart muscle, initially will cause anginal pain, then of course no pain. Because the muscle is dying or it's dead, the heart contraction will be low, right? So the patient will have a heart attack. So heart attack means because of complete cessation of blood supply, because of a completely blocked artery or coronary artery of the heart, that part of the heart which is supplied by that particular artery is completely devoid of blood supply and thereby dying. That muscle dies. So that is known as heart attack. So the heart attack may occur in a particular portion of the heart. It may be the front portion, it may be the inferior portion, it may be the back portions. So that particular area which is supplied by an artery which is completely blocked will give rise to heart attack. So remember, heart angina is because of less blood supply, and heart attack is because of complete cessation and thereby dying of a portion of a muscle of the heart. So if the muscle of the artery is partially blocked, that will give rise to angina. If it is fully blocked, that will give rise to myocardial infarction or heart attack. So the warning signs I told you, angina is a symptom, it's a warning sign. So there will be angina, and if that part of the heart, the muscle is completely died, it's completely dead, then there won't be any pain. So there perhaps will not be any angina. Initially there will be angina, and later on there won't be chest pain. Then shortness of breath, because the function of the heart is to pump blood even to the lungs for getting oxygenated. So if the heart contraction because of that dead muscle is not proper, and thereby not sending significant or adequate amount of blood to the lungs for oxygenation, then we'll have less oxygenated blood in our body. So thereby giving rise to breathlessness. We may have nausea. Nausea means vomiting sensation, or vomiting or sweating or lightheadedness. So these are the symptoms of heart attack or myocardial infarction. If a large portion of the heart is affected by heart attack, the muscle is dead, then there will be a cardiogenic shock. You must have heard about shock. Shock means the heart is not in a proper condition to pump blood to the body, thereby not maintaining adequate blood pressure. So that condition is known as shock. If the blood pressure is very low, that condition is known as shock. Cardiogenic means the shock is because of heart. There may be shock because of infection. There may be shock because of accident, injury, and bleeding, thereby having less amount of blood. So in this case, this is a cardiogenic shock. So the complications of heart attack is shock, heart failure, irregular heartbeat, and sudden cardiac arrest and death. If the portion of the heart muscle is huge, thereby the heart is not functioning properly and not able to maintain the pumping of blood throughout the body adequate amount, then ultimately the system will fail and there will be cardiac arrest and death. So what to do? If you have heart attack, obviously we have to go to a doctor. So before going to a doctor, you should at least, if you are doing some work, suppose you are walking, you are doing some exercise, in the meantime you may have a heart attack. So you should follow all the precautions and all the do's which I have told you for angina, and you should immediately rush to the hospital. So, and the treatment of heart attack is in the hospital, they give injections to liquefy your blood, and it's same as angina, because angina, if in case of angina also you are treating it by stenting or bypass surgery, thereby preventing a heart attack later on. And if the heart is already had an attack, the treatment is also the same, like angioplasty, stenting, or bypass surgery. Then CPR, or cardiopulmonary resuscitation. What is cardiopulmonary resuscitation? Cardio means heart, pulmonary means lungs. Cardiac is related to pumping of blood, pulmonary is related to our breathing, right? So cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or CPR, means CPR is a life-saving technique useful in many emergencies in which someone's breathing or heartbeat had stopped, right? So wherein the heartbeat and ventricular actions are temporarily or permanently restored till appropriate and definite treatment is available. So any patient having a respiratory arrest or a heart arrest, or a condition of the heart, irregular beats, or very less function of the heart because of severe cardiogenic shock, thereby the heart is not maintaining adequate blood pressure. So these are the conditions where we have to resuscitate the patient. We have to resuscitate the heart, we have to resuscitate the lungs. So the purposes of resuscitation, see, heart and lung are a single unit, because heart pumps impure blood to the lungs for oxygenation. So heart and lungs are considered to be a single unit. So the purposes of the CPR is to maintain a clear airway. Suppose a patient is having an accident or bleeding from mouth, so blood will come and choke his throat. The patient cannot, it will block the air pipe. The patient cannot respire. So the airway has to be clear. Suppose the patient is having a fracture in the spine, neck bone. So the air, the windpipe will be blocked. So to maintain a clear airway, open and clear airway, the purpose is that, and to thereby to maintain breathing. And because of the lung problem or the heart problem or both, the heart is not able to maintain a circulation and thereby maintaining the circulation. So what we'll do, if we press upon the chest, thereby pressing the heart, The heart's function is to contract, is to pump blood. If it's not functioning properly, not contracting properly, and we are, pressing it from outside, thereby allowing it, or inducting pressure so that it will eject blood outside. So this is kind of heart contraction which we are giving it from outside. Thereby, what is that thing? That is giving massage to the chest. Actually, it is giving massage to the heart. Okay. So A, B, C, these are the purposes of CPR. So what are the indications? Again, I told you, if there is a electrical, if there is complete stoppage of the heart, arrest, asystole, or irregular heartbeats, thereby the heart not maintaining circulation, which are known as VT and VF, ventricular tachycardia. The heart is beating very rapidly, thereby not allowing time to pump proper amount of blood, adequate amount of blood, or fibrillation. Fibrillation means the heart is just flickering. It's not contracting. It's not contracting. It's just flickering. So these are the conditions where one needs a CPR. So these are the respiratory conditions. Support is some this here comes the role of the swimming coaches, and the swimmers should know about this. Drowning. If we drown, thereby inhaling water, so lungs will be blocked. So there would be proper oxygenation. So these are the conditions: drowning, stroke. The patient is having a stroke, bleeding in the brain, or the patient is having a foreign body in the throat. Thereby, whatever breathing you are taking, that's not going inside the lungs. Or we are inhaling smoke in a closed chamber or in a closed area. आपने सुना होगा ना ब्लास्ट का जो स्मोक है या जो इंडस्ट्रीज का स्मोक है. Then drug overdose, suffocation, somebody is trying to suffocate you, or maybe because of accident or injury your air pipe is injured, or there will be blood in the air pipe, or coma, or epiglottis paralysis. So these are the respiratory conditions in where there will be a respiratory paralysis, there will be respiratory arrest, wherein we need to do cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So I told you the heart condition, I told you the lung conditions. So principles of CPR is to restore effective circulation and ventilation. So we have to give massage so that the heart has to function. We have to give breathing to the patient so that the lungs should get air or oxygen. So the principles of CPR is to restore effective circulation and ventilation. Ventilation means respiration or breathing. So out of all this, if the patient is not maintaining adequate blood pressure, there will be damage to the brain. So the initial 4 minutes of a cardiac arrest or a cardiorespiratory arrest is very important, because beyond 4 minutes, there will be irreversible damage to the brain. So if we want to give cardiorespiratory, cardiopulmonary resuscitation to the patient, so you have to be very fast. You have to give it in the first 4 minutes. Otherwise, you will revive the patient will be alive, but his brain will be dead, right? And that has to be very effective. So the process of CPR, you have to give compressions to the chest. There will be 30 compressions of the chest. How I'll show you. And after 30 compressions to the chest or to the heart, there will be 2 breaths. You have to give 2 breaths to the patient by putting your mouth to his mouth or nose, and thereby pumping air inside, right? So 30 chest compressions followed by 2 breaths, and 1 breath should be for 1 second. Then give a gap of 1 second so that the patient, what air you have given to the patient lung will get inflated. Then the patient will breathe out also. So allow 1 second to elapse, then give the second breath. So 30 compressions. The compressions should be at the rate of 100 compressions per minute. That means roughly 2 compressions in a second, like this. So give 30 compressions, then through his mouth, 2 breaths, 1 breath for 1 second, then leave, allow the patient 1 minute, then give another breath to his mouth, like this, right? So these are the steps to approach safely, check for response. Many times the patient's respiration is there, the patient's heart is functioning, but the patient is unconscious because of brain injury. So in that case, you don't have to give the CPR. So you have to check the response of the patient, whether patient is conscious or not. For that, you have to, call the patients, please listen, or you have to, gently hold the shoulder and shake him, so as to, know his response. If the patient's heart is working properly, how do you know? By checking the pulse, or by putting your, your ear in the left chest. And how will you know the patient is having breath? You can keep your ear near the nose, nostrils of the patients, or keep your hand near the nostrils. If the patient is taking respiration, if the patient's heart is contracting, then don't resuscitate the patient. He is having brain injury. That is a different thing, right? And as I told you, give 30 compressions plus 2 rescue breaths. And in the meantime, because these are fast jets, call the ambulance. So I told you how to check the response of the patient, right? You have to be gentle. Then this is open airway, ABC, open and clear airway. This posture of, like if you tilt the head to the back side and lift the chin to the upside, like this. So this is the posture which maintain a clear airway, open airway. So we have to achieve this posture by pressing the head of the patient backwards and by lifting the chin forwards, like this. So this achieves the position of an open and clear airway. Same thing. And you can just hold the mandible, this lower jaw, lift it like this, right? And you can also, like, this is checking the breathing of the patient, whether the patient is having a respiratory arrest or not. See, your compression should not be with the fingers, it should be with the wrist, the heel of your hand, the wrist. So you have to make a, open up your hand and keep another hand, and with the heel of your hand or the wrist, keep on the center portion of the chest, give compression. Your compression should be adequate, so adequate that the chest should fall by 2 inches, 1.5 to 2 inches. It should be so hard that this chest will go backwards by 1.5 to 2 inches or 4.5 centimeters. You may injure the ribs, you may injure the muscles, you may injure the heart, you may injure the lungs, but you have to give adequate amount of compression. Otherwise, if you think that these structures will be injured and give inadequate compressions, then you cannot maintain the circulation. You may take care of the ribs, you may take care of the turned lungs later on. The most important thing is to revive the patient. Okay. So if ideally if there are 2 operators available, one have to give adequate pressure, then every two minutes 30 compressions, leave 2 breaths with 1 centimeter gap, then another operator should jump in. If one operator is there, he can continue to do that, right? So give respiration, pinch the nose, lift the chin as I told, then interlock your, seal your lips, in the mouth of the patient, opening, and push. You should take a normal breath, then put your mouth, then 1 second, then lift your mouth, allow the patient, the chest to fall back, then give another compression, right? So I told you the complications of CPR: heart arteries injury, diaphragmatic muscle injury, blood in the chest because of injury, air in the chest because of injury to the lungs, and liver injury. Doesn't matter. You should give adequate CPR. Then immediately rush to the hospital. Then the sudden cardiac would be suppose the patient is having a massive heart attack, the patient can have a sudden cardiac arrest. The patient is having a severely blocked aortic valve, one of the valves of the heart, which is also age related process. The patient can have a sudden cardiac arrest. If the patient is having a respiratory arrest because of any of the things which I have told before, ultimately the heart will also get arrested. So the patients of a sudden heart arrest. Sudden heart arrest, cardiac arrest may, what will you do? It's CPR. The CPR, I told you heart and lung are same unit. So CPR may chest compressions, rescue breaths, then call for help, or rush to the hospital. Okay. So in CPR, follow the basic life support principles, as I told you. And if somebody is trained in an advanced cardio, there are few emergency, some injections are there, and it's a mask kind of thing which you can pump air to the lungs. So this comes in advanced cardiovascular life support. Okay. I don't know why Kaustav has kept asthma as a subject. I asked him. He told if a patient is asthmatic, so we don't generally allow him in the swimming pool. Just remember, asthma is a respiratory, is a breathing disorder. See, when you breathe wind, oxygen or the air goes into your windpipe, and the windpipe branches into many branches and sub branches. So asthma is a disease. It's a chronic inflammatory disease. Inflammation swelling दिखता है, then redness. So when there is swelling and redness because of a response to some injury or infection or something, that is known as inflammation, because your body responds to that particular injury or infection. Am I audible? Hello? Okay. Right. So asthma is a disease of the airways, your smaller airways. It's a chronic inflammatory disease. Thereby, what happens? The windpipes, they get constricted, right? छोटा हो जाते हैं, constriction हो जाते हैं. So patients have breathlessness. Okay. So wheezing sounds निकलता है like this. Okay. And patient have cough and yeah. So remember, the mostly asthma is a disease of the which is by birth or hereditary. It could be acquired also. Okay. So it is because of chronic inflammation of the airways. Right. At times what happens? The triggering factors, cold. So in the cold, what happens is, I told you the heart arteries, they get constricted. They becomes, small in diameter. Similarly, the windpipes, they also get constricted. So in winter season, the chances of asthma is more. Similarly, in winter, if you are, swimming, water is cold, there is a chance, aggravation of asthma, right? So this is just to show here, this is a normal airway. This is a windpipe. The windpipe is getting branched and there are sub branches, and these are, lungs. So these small branches, medium and small branches, they get constricted. How? I have taken a cross section of this. So this is normal heart windpipe. You can see how constricted the lumen, the central portion of this pipe is, because of the chronic inflammation of the muscle or the wall of this windpipe, and this white structure are excessive mucus. So asthma is a state of chronic inflammatory airway disease. So these are the triggering factors for asthma. Smoking, dust, strong odors. There are few people, if you apply, deodorant or perfume to your body, and the patient come across on that, his smaller airways and medium air they can get constricted, thereby aggravating asthma. Pollutants, anger also, release of hormones that constricts the air pipe. Like stress does the same thing, and pets, because of pets, their hair and their some basically those act as pollutants, pollen grains, and exercise. These are the things which can aggravate asthma. These bugs and cockroaches, chemical fumes, as I told you, cold air, I told you, fungus, spores, dust, all these can. So this is the triggering factor for asthma. Remember, asthma is a disease which is completely curable. So you should ideally see a respiratory physician or a pulmonologist for completely getting cured of asthma. Initially, we were thinking that asthma is not curable, but now asthma is completely curable. So if somebody has an asthma, so these are the things which one should avoid, because this triggers, and he ideally should visit a pulmonologist to get cured, complete cure, right? Treatment is avoid triggering factors and seek medical help. So these are the things. Thank you, Field Safe Education Sports Foundation. Thanks everyone. And this at the time of Corona pandemic, it's really a tragedy. It's a crisis in the world. My sincere prayers to the Almighty to bless you all, to save the world, to heal the world. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable words and information. Those can help us to save someone's life and suggest our family members to take this precaution to protect themselves also. And thanks a lot, sir.
My pleasure. Any questions?
If anyone have any question, please ask. So sir have 2 minutes more to give you the answer. Please. Anyone have any questions? Tapan sir, ma'am.
Hi, sir.
He has explained, doctor has explained very elaborately, and I don't think he left any of the space to ask question. So nicely been explained. So if anybody else is
thank you very much. Sir, thank you very much. There are two things. Either I have explained it very nicely, or I have explained it in such a dirty way that nobody could understand what is happening.
No, there's no chance.
No.
These are the two situations.
I hope Santosh Mishra sir wants to talk something, tell something.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, this is Santosh Mishra from Moscow, and I just wanted, while pressing the chest to allow somebody to breathe, at that time you told that not to worry about breaking the ribs, but how careful we should be by doing, or we have to be very, what you can say, cruel and do that.
Yeah. See, sir, actually, what do you call that? See, this is a situation where the patient is already dying, right? Suppose structure, its heart is automaticity. That means it contracts on its own.
Sir.
So externally, you have to exert pressure so that the adequate amount of the heart should generate adequate amount of pressure so as to eject the blood outside the heart, and the pressure should be such it should at least reach the brain, because within 4 minutes if you don't do that, so you have to be persistent, you have to be gentle, you have to be consistent, you have to be at the same time forceful. See, if the center of the heart, center of the chest has a rectangular piece of bone, right? That is known as sternum. Our ribs, they come and they join here. So the center is a bone and rib. So we have to give just compress the center portion of that chest, that is the sternum. So chest cavity is an elastic cavity. If you are gentle at the same time, forceful, you would not, injure anything, because it's already elastic. It's, when you take in breath, it expands. When you take out breath, it collapses. So as the heart, the chest wall is already doing this movement on its own. So since that spontaneity is not there, you are giving it from exogenous source. So you won't injure anything, unless otherwise you are very rough, you are untrained. So in the process, if 1 or 2 ribs are broken, or there is a tear in the lung, so don't worry, that can be taken care of. So you have to be very gentle, at the same time forceful. It has to be through the heel of your hands, with interlocked hand like this, not fingers, not palm, and on the center, it should be at the rate of 100 compressions per minute. That means roughly 2 compressions per second, very consistently. So that's the reason why I told that you have to change the operators. One may get fatigued, thereby doing inadequate job. So in the process, even we doctors at times give CPR, and there we injure a rib or a muscle or here in the lung. So you have to be gentle, at the same time forceful. See, the basic is to maintain the circulation and to maintain circulation to the brain.
And one more minute question, sir.
Sure.
If suppose after 15 pressure, we find some symptom of coming back breathing and all, do we have to continue to make sure that it is foolproof, or then and there we should stop?
Sir, you are very right. You are very right. See, sir, there are 2 things. One is heart, one is lungs. CPR is for both, for heart and for lungs. Right, sir? So how do you know that the heart has come back? Because you will feel the pulse. When the peripheral pulse is palpable, that means the heart is generating adequate amount of pressure. That is good enough. So you should stop. But you shouldn't stop and forget. Because the heart, you may, revive the heart temporarily. If you leave it, then the heart, may go into asystole or arrest again. So you have to intermittently check the pulse. See, sir, these are peripheral pulses. There are 2 arteries in 2 sides of the neck. These are known as carotid arteries. And in the groin also there